Okay. So we have been discussing about ARM7 microcontroller in during our previous classes, and also yesterday I have recorded a shorter video to give you an idea of the ARM instructions. So here in today's class we will continue after instructions, so how to do programming of this ARM microcontroller with simple examples, and then we'll gradually ramp up the complexity of the examples as we go along. So just a very quick revision of the block diagram or certain parts of this block diagram, that you can see that ARM7 processor, which is the ARM7 TDMI, is bounded with several different buses, and these buses are a group of 32-bit lines which can carry either address or data or both for various blocks. Now, more importantly, we will today have a look at this APB side, which is ARM peripheral bus, and all the peripherals are, or in fact, most of the peripherals are connected through this APB bus. And this APB bus is connected to general purpose IOs. So this is one of the peripherals that we'll be considering today. And these GPIOs are categorized into two types. These are simple GPIOs which are connected through APB, and there are fast GPIOs which are connected through ARM7 local bus. So we will ignore this ARM7 local bus programming for this course. We'll just simply adopt this APB side, because that if you learn the APB side, then almost you can use any other peripherals which are also connected to APB bus, which is ARM peripheral bus. Remember, APB bus is slightly slower than the ARM7 bus. So that is one reason why APB is connected through so many peripherals. So that means while connecting to so many peripherals, it takes certain amount of time. Obviously, you can access any one of the peripherals at a given time, but in general, APB, the physical distance of this APB peripherals are far from the processor, which is ARM7 core. Since the distance is far, distance means even few millimeter more distance as compared to ARM7 local bus versus the distance with this ARM7 TDMI matters a lot in a micro controller chip, because for high speed communication, larger the distance or longer the distance of for a given wire, it becomes more susceptible to noise, it becomes more prone to data corruption. And to avoid those problems, so we reduce the speed of the communication through the bus, which stays little far off. So in this case, APB divider has been utilized, because APB divider reduces the overall clock speed or the system clock speed to a lower frequency, which is called P clock. So the P clock is the output of this APB divider, and the input of this is system clock, which is also called as core clock or CCLK. C clock is the system clock, and P clock is the APB clock. Okay, so given having said this basic information, or some of it has been repeated from previous classes, we will see today how to program this GPIO pins. Now this GPIO pins, so if you want to understand how it is done, so I have actually prepared an example how to port, how to toggle an LEDs. But before this example, I will take you to the PDF file where you will find this user manual. Okay, so this is the user manual document, which is a very long document, 297 pages. I will just introduce you to some parts of this manual, and I will also tell you what are the other parts that you should read in some detail, but you don't have to read entire document in detail. So that is one thing. So I wanted to reduce your workload in every sense as much as possible in a logical and meaningful way, obviously. So we have to consider overviewing this entire document, but we will only selectively study certain parts of it. So user manual is a detailed documentation for any microcontroller, as you had seen partially for the 8051. For all modern microcontroller, you will find a datasheet something like this, which is called a product datasheet or simple datasheet. And then you have an adjacent document or adjoining document, which is a user manual. So user manual is a long enough document to explore each and every block or every peripheral in detail. And if you understand this user manual or study this manual, you will be able to access almost every part of this microcontroller, which has been meant for manipulation by the programmers through code or some connections. Okay, so in the user manual, we will only look at the portions today which are relevant to GPIO communication, that is general purpose input output communication. You can see GPIO block, but you should not come over here right away. There is something called pin connect block that we should consider first before going to the GPIO part actually. Now this pin connect block is again related to something which is pin configuration. So we had seen pin configuration, but I'll just quickly go over it in order to tell you the relevance why we have to come to this pin configuration once again. So this is the pin configuration of LPC2138 microcontroller, and if you look at it, there are lots of GPIO pins. Wherever you find P something, that indicates GPIO pins. And apart from GPIO pins, there are some power supply lines like VDD, VSS, reset, and so on, and also crystal pins. So there are some power supply lines. You have seen that the ones power supply lines with subscript A represents analog power supply, VDDA and VSSA. So these are for ADC and DAC, which is analog to digital converter and digital to analog converter. So for these two blocks mainly, we use this VDDA and VSSA terminals, whereas VSS and VDD, simple VDD, are meant for digital part of the chip. That means remaining all the blocks are powered by VDD VSS. We know this. So we had discussed this also. But today's focus is on the I/O ports. So here you can see the I/O ports. There are lots of I/O ports here. So there are 32 plus 16 I/O ports. So 32 port 0 and there are 16 port 1 I/O pins. If you look at the alternate functions of these I/O pins, you can see multiple names which are actually coming from various peripherals from the microcontroller, which are all connected or mostly connected to APB bus, ARM peripheral bus. Now this port 0.14 in this particular example, like say pin number 41, has 4 different purposes. So you can use this pin number 41 of this microcontroller for 4 different purposes. So first one is GPIO. So if I want to use it as digital input or digital output or general purpose input output in digital domain, we should use it in P0 point whatever number is given or P1 point whatever number is given afterwards. But this alternate functions, whatever comes after this, is called as alternate functions of a given pin. So the pins could be either GPIO or alternate function, and there could be multiple alternate functions. So up to, if you look at any pin on this microcontroller pin diagram, so there are only up to 4 options are given. So that means P0.16 in this example, /ENT0, MAT 0.2 and CAP 0.2. So this is basically either GPIO 0.16 or external interrupt input 0 or match 0.2 channel or captured 0.2 channel. So you can see the description from the pin description chart of this. So what I'm trying to say that up to 3 alternate functions are present for any pin and one along with the GPIO function. But there are basically some pins like P0.23 where only GPIO function is present. No other alternate function is present. For example, for this pin number 58. Now, what if I want to use GPIO from any one of these pins? So any one of the pins which are having alternate functions. To do that, to select that, we have to first say through our code. Basically, we have to write something through our code where we will communicate to the microcontroller that we want to use GPIO and not any other alternate function. So that information is given through this pin connect block. Okay, so this pin connect block is one of the chapters which in this particular user manual. And if you look at, you should understand how to read such a long document. Okay, so it's like you have to overview certain parts and focus on specific portions of this chapters, every chapter that will deal with more basically importance. So we'll see. So we'll not read line by line. So that you can do separately, but that's not recommended all the time. So once you become expert, that's not recommended. So once you are studying it first time, obviously you must read each and every thing that has been stated over here. So I'll straight away go. So whatever I told you, so it's actually a modified version of this description. And obviously they may have written something else that I'm not considering, such as some disruption or basically how to do A to D conversion. So those details I'm just skipping for now. For any, if you are writing any code and through the code only you are trying to say to the microcontroller that you are going to have any pin as IO function, GPIO function. So now to do that, we always look at some special function registers. Okay, so there are different registers associated with each of the blocks that you get to see on the left. For each of those blocks, there is a bunch of registers. And you have to configure or write or read something from those to or from these registers in order to configure that block. Now our aim is to configure the GPIO, but we are not directly going to GPIO because we have to first configure what the pin purpose is going to do. So through this pin select register, so there are 3 pin select register, pin cell 0, 1 and 2. So through this pin select registers, we are trying to select the function of a pin. Now the function of a pin, there are 4 functions, right? GPIO, and there are 3 alternate functions. So we have to select what a particular pin should do. And there are up to 48, that is 32 plus 16 input output pins. And assuming we are using any one of those pins or more than one or all of the pins, so we have to select functions for the selected pins that we want to use in our own way. It's not necessary that we have to use all the pin select or all the pins for all our applications. It's not a necessity. You cannot even touch certain registers in your microcontroller. That is okay, given you are good enough with certain group of registers. Suppose in the pin configuration, I'm just using, let's say, port 0.9, for example, or port 0.8, any one of the ports that I want to use. So something which is having an alternate function. So that's what I mean. And if I want to select that particular pin for GPIO purpose, I have to go inside this pin select, any one of these 3 pin selects, and then tell the microcontroller what I want to do with that particular pin. So let's look at this example of this pin select 0. So pin select 0 is having certain physical address. So this is the address of the register under consideration, either pin select 0, 1 or 2. So these are the physical address that is mapped within the memory map. So basically those addresses are mapped somewhere in these APB peripherals. Okay, so E series basically after E whatever number. So that should be mapped somewhere within this APB peripherals. Okay, and that particular register pin select 0, let's say we have to look at bit by bit. So in fact, now, so if you look at this pin select 0 and let's look at this port pins 1 and 0. So that means we are taking a group of bits, that is group of 2 bits, and then there are different groups of 2 bits. So port 0.0 is configured for configured by these 2 bits, pins bits 1 and that means D1 and D0 of this pin cell 0. What is this P0.0? So pin 0.0. So let's look for the pin 0.0. Where is this pin 0.0? You have to first search. So this is my pin 0.0. Okay. So pin number 19. on this pin configuration. So pin number 19 is having alternate functions. There are two alternate functions in this case, TXD0 and PWM1. Okay, so these two are alternate functions. This is GPIO function. Now I want to use it as GPIO function, repeating again. And for that, I have to configure 2 bits for this 1 bit GPIO. So P0.0 is just a 1 bit representation of 1 bit pin, or which is a single pin having representing port 0.0 only. And in order to configure the purpose of that particular port 0.0, we have to configure these 2 bits, bit 0 and bit 1 of pin cell 0. And now based on the combination of values, so this 2 value, the 2 bit combination could be 00, 01, 10 and 11. So as you can see that any 2 bit number should have 2 to the power 2, that is 4 combinations of digital numbers. And in this case, if you write 00, then it will be used as GPIO port 0.0. So that means port 0.0 is useful only if you use it as, if you write 00 in this 2 bits of pin cell 0. Okay, but if you write 01, it will become TXD0, right? So that was the alternate function for UART 0 channel. And 10 for this port pin cell zeros, bit 1 and bit 0 will make it a PWM channel 1. And since there are only 2 alternate functions, so the third function is missing, so it is called as reserved in this case. Similarly, if you go to the pin configuration and look for pin P1.1, and it has 3 alternate functions, RxD0 or PWM3 or external interrupt 0. So in this case, you will find that pin number 21 is represented by this this group of functions. There are 4 alternate functions. But one small observation, EINT0, which is external interrupt 0, is also present elsewhere. Okay, so it's not necessary that external interrupt can be utilized. Suppose you want to use this pin as PWM3, suppose EINT0 gets occupied, you cannot use it as external interrupt 0. In such case, you have another option elsewhere on the pin configuration to use it as given you are not using MAT and CAP. Okay, so now coming back to port 0.1, so you can if you look at those 4 functions, GPIO port 0.1, if you want to use it at GPIO, write 00, or you can write any one of the other 3 combination numbers on this bits 3 and 2 on pin cell 0, where you can select RxD 0 or PWM3 or external interrupt 0. Okay, so likewise, so for every port pin on this microcontroller can be configured, so the pin function can be selected through this pin cell 0. Now the point is, pin cell 0 is a 32-bit register, special function register. So this 32-bit register has and 2 bits per IO port. That means it can only accommodate up to 16 IO ports from port 0 or whichever other port it is allowed. So you need, however, port 0 is 32-bit IO, so it requires 64 bits total, right? Port 0 is having port 0.0 to port 0.31. If I keep on scrolling this list, if I am still within pin cell 0, and pin cell 0 can accommodate only up to P0.15. That indicates you need more number of bits to configure remaining pins of port 0, port 0.16 to port 0.31 requires more bits. So that's why pin cell 1 is there. And for pin cell 1, if you look at it, has a slightly different address as pin cell 0, obviously. And then continue reading this pin cell 1, you'll find this port 0.16 onwards, whereas the previous one ended at port 0.15. This starts at port 0.16. So that means here bit 1 and bit 0 are representing the function select for port 0.16. And here you can, again, there are 4 options that you can consider, and you have to write required value to this pin cell before configuring. Now, if I want to use a pin cell as GPIO, so obviously I have to write again 0, 0. Now coming to GPIO, I want to write 1 or 0 through this general purpose input output line. So what shall I do? So GPIO is another chapter which is on the same document, and in this particular chapter we will learn how to configure this GPIO lines. Now GPIO lines could be all used as either input or output. These are all digital in general, but unless it is multiplexed with some analog lines like ADC lines or DAC lines, in that case some pins can also work as analog input or analog output pin, given you are selecting the alternate function through the pin cell properly. Okay, so you have to do that pin cell 0 or 1 properly. Just one thing I just skipped over here, that is for pin cell 0 and 1 we have covered, but for pin cell 2 is a 32-bit register which is particularly used for port 1 signals. So port 1 has pin 15 to 31. Okay, so this pin cell 0, if you look at this pin cell 0, so pin cell 0 is a special type of port which is representing port 1, and certain pins of port 1 are used for either debugging or even tracing purpose apart from GPIO purpose. Okay, so that means this internal debugger, on-chip debugger, or this embedded trace logic are also sharing this IO pins. Rather, the peripherals are actually not sharing these pins. So you can configure it either GPIO or trace or GPIO or debug pins for pin cell 2. Okay. So again, going back to the GPIO general purpose input output, assuming I have already written pin cell with 0, 0 values in order to configure it in GPIO for any given pin, and now I have to write either 0 or 1 to this. Assuming I'm using port 0.0 in a digital input or digital output mode, in such case I am now going to configure how to configure it as input or output, or how to write anything to this port, or how to read anything from this port, which is port 0.0. Okay, so there are some registers, some more registers that you have to understand or read from this document. And this document is telling you that the legacy APB, which is advanced peripheral bus that we discussed at the beginning today, are actually related to this GPIO registers, and the map, that means there's a group of registers are there which are configured, used to configure this GPIO under legacy APB. Legacy basically is relatively slow, obviously. So the first one that we'll look at is this IO DIR. So we'll not go as per the sequence given here, rather we'll go in a logical way which is easy to understand. So we'll first go with direction pin. So input output direction. So GPIO port direction control register. This is the register that individually controls individually. So you can actually keep any pin as input or other pin as output. So you can have individual or separate controls for the direction of every pin. So IO direction essentially controls the direction, whether it is input direction or output direction. So it has to be configured very well, because even in analog mode or digital mode, in both the cases, this direction is important for any IO pin. Now, once you set the direction, then you can either go and set the pin or reset the pin. Assuming I set the direction as output, so I want to use this port 0.0 as an output direction. And I will do something with this IO DIR register. We'll see what we have to write in this, either 0 or 1 to a given pin or given line corresponding to, or given bit corresponding to port 0.0. And after setting the direction, let's say I set the direction as output, then I want to set the output, or I want to reset the output, like clear the output. Okay, so through this IO set, I can make the output as 1, given I have already set the direction as output direction. Okay, or after the output direction being configured, I can also reset the output by writing something on the IO CLR or clear or reset register. Okay, and now direction can also be input, and whether it is input or output, so the exact value or instantaneous value of that particular port pin can be read by this IO pin register. So this IO pin register essentially represents every pin from a given IO port, whether port 0 or 1. So say this IO pin represents the instantaneous value, and that value can be originating from an external device if it is in input direction, or this same value on this particular port pin can originate from inside if the pin direction is output. Okay, so these four registers are very essential for doing the general purpose input output activity under general digital mode of operation. Like simple GPIO means simple digital input output operation. So what we just repeat of the information, first we set the direction. So actually first we set the pin select, pin cell 0 or 1. So that is the first step that one should do. After that, you should set the direction of any given pin. And once you set the direction, you can, if it is output, then only you can use this IO set or clear. If the direction is input, then you don't use this IO set or clear. Rather, you should only use this IO pin, because if the direction is input, something is coming from outside world, and then you want to read the value. What is that value from the outside world? And that value is reflected on this pin register or the bit inside this particular register. Each register is 32-bit wide. So that means IO pin is 32-bit, IO set is 32-bit, and so on. And each of them are having different addresses. And now look at this other part of the table, where there are two IO pins, one for port 0 and other for port 1. Similarly, there are two IO set register, two IO direction register, two IO clear registers separate for port 0 and port 1, such that you can individually have control or gain control over each and every GPIO pins.
Sir, I have a doubt in this one.
Yes.
There are two doubts. First of all, why do we have different IO set and IO clear?
Okay. So yeah, it is a good observation. It may look as an overhead because of reliability issue. That is one known answer that is I'm aware of, that due to reliability issue. So what happens if you keep one D flip-flop and setting? So what this IO output or input side means, essentially there are D latches or D flip-flops. Okay, and those flip-flops are having one clock signal, one data signal, and two output Q1, Q1. If you consider simple D flip-flop, which is placed in an IO of a microcontroller, and that microcontroller may not be ARM also. Okay, in general I'm speaking. So if there is some noise, it may be some digital noise or power supply noise or some noise coming through the clock in the form of jitter. In such case, your output can get affected. Now the point is, due to some noise, your output can get affected. That's a very big problem if really it happens even once in a while. Once in a while, suppose you are developing a product using a microcontroller and deploy it in the field, and once in very critical time, at some point, it is misbehaving due to that digital noise or power supply noise. It can cause fatal error. Now, to reduce the chances of noise, what they have split it, they have actually done it through two different flip-flops actually. So you can think that each bit of these registers are controlling the D input line of any flip-flop. Now the clock is whatever clock that you are you are applying to the microcontroller internally, obviously, and that clock should have two different paths. Obviously, it will take two different routing wires to it. Although the routing wires may be very close to each other, but they are actually two. But more importantly, there are two different flip-flops. One is actually set flip-flop and clear flip-flops. So this is unlikely that you are actually reducing the chances of error to 50%. Okay, so that means, so if you have two flip-flops and both should match, basically both should agree, come to a single basically conclusion. In such case, the chances of error due to noise is actually reduced. But it adds to the problem that it increases area on your chip, it increases power consumption, also it increases one more register, which has to be programmed for this. So they could have done that IO data kind of data kind of single register where all 32 bits, either you give it 1, so that particular output will go to 1. If you give it 0, the output will be 0. So that is how most other microcontrollers are doing. But in case of ARM, they thought that it is more sensible to make it more reliable, because what happens in this high-speed processor, so ARM is typically relatively high speed than many other microcontrollers. So in high-speed microcontrollers, the propensity of such noise, digital noise, is quite high, and not just digital but also power supply noise because of loading effect due to if inadequate decoupling capacitor is used. So I can talk about that separately. So if inadequate power supply stabilization is used, suppose your voltage regulator fails to maintain for a very short amount of time, like for few nanoseconds the power supply drops. So during that time, so your microcontroller should not misbehave. So due to that, there is a redundant way of doing the thing, and redundant way obviously comes with some penalty, which is size, power, and overhead in programming.
Sir, but that still brings you to the point. What I understood is that they must both agree to give the output, right?
Yes, they must.
IO set should be 0 when IO clear is 1, and when IO clear is 1, IO set should be.
Yes, so it should be basically, it's not exactly like that. You have to write logic 1 to this clear to reset an output pin. You have to write logic 1 to this particular bit to set the output pin. So you can see that in the later part of this document where they are actually explaining this fact. So we just ignored this fast GPIO map. I just ignored this for simplicity. But let's look at this remaining part of this document. So where we'll possibly get your answer. So in this P0, so as I said, there are two direction registers, IO direction for port 0 and port 1. So this is port 0 X DIR. So that is for port, this X represents the pin number. So which is port 0.02, port 0.31. Okay, so port, or you can actually write this to port direction as 0 in order to make it as input. And you can write this direction as 1 to make it as an output. So this is a defined way to set the direction with the input or output. And there is obviously separate IO1 direction and port IO2 IO0 direction and IO1 direction for those two ports. Okay, so we'll ignore this fast. So wherever you come across this F, it is a fast GPIO. You can read through it. It is in the same way, but it's slightly different. I'll just go to this set and reset part. So this val part comes in fast GPIO. So here is the information. So it's a bit interleaved information. So that's why. Okay, so port 0 clear and port 1 clear. So that means you have to basically, for slow GPIO, slow means something connected to APB bus, obviously. So this bit clears to 0 if this particular bit is set to 1. So that is the meaning of this particular port 0x CLR, or similarly port 1 CLR, similarly port 0 set and port 1 set is available. I'll take you through an example. I think this is quite scattered. You can read obviously. So I'll just take you to my own notes from this manual where so we are trying to toggle an LED. So let's look at the program later on. So first revise what we just said or what is written from the manual. So first we have to do the pin select. So where we are selecting any one of the functions, either GPIO function or alternate function. I think this is very clear. Now then we set the direction. So the direction 0 means input, 1 means output. And then this IO set and IO clear, where if you write 1 to this particular value to this bit in this register, any one of the bits in this register, then the output pin goes to high. Whereas in contrast, for clear purpose, you want to write 0 at a given port pin. So then also you have to write 1 to this particular register, and then that resets the pin at the output. So now the point is, if there is a noise, obviously there is a less chance, at least 50% less chance, that both the flip-flops with the set and clear gets written with logic 1 at the same time. Because so you should make sure that both basically should not get burst condition. So now the point is, the microcontroller keeps a track in case of ARM which has been written last, and then it actually have this bus arbitration. So there is something also called bus arbitration, which increases reliability even further. That means, so it looks at that for how many clock cycles it is taking if I am changing a port pin, or if we are changing anything within the microcontroller, any value within the microcontroller, any register, any port pin. So how many clocks it is actually taking. So it actually keeps track of the machine cycle. So machine cycle, if you remember from 8051, machine cycle indicates the number of clock cycles which are required to perform or execute a single instruction. That includes fetch, decode, and execute. All three things. How much time, how many clocks it requires. So it is called machine cycle. And the machine cycle basically is having in ARM, so it keeps track of the exact machine cycles, such that you can also make sure that due to any noise, you cannot immediately, like two subsequent clocks, cannot write one to this both the registers one after another. So that is the basically one way to increase reliability of this microcontroller. And then obviously the port pin, IO pin, you can measure the value if it is in input mode. Yes.
So the 50% reduction is sounding also right, because see, say I clear the pin, right?
Yeah.
Now the only error that can come is that if IO set becomes 1.
Yeah.
So that could have happened even if I was just working with one register, right? That 50% thing comes when IO set also becomes 1 and IO clear also becomes 0.
See, I told one more point that you have to follow. That is how
The
many
arbitration by
clocks
the
are there in between these two effects. Let's say set and clear register you are configuring. Suppose digital noise is quite random, and assuming there is a sudden random noise which comes, and that noise stays for, let's say, few nanoseconds due to some switching activity elsewhere. And that within that few nanoseconds, you are not allowed to set and then reset one after another. So that is not allowed in case of this microcontroller, which is not ensured in older generation of microcontrollers. But obviously, this is not the only way to increase reliability. That is definitely sure. This is not the only way. So the reliability can also be increased by putting decoupling capacitors outside for power line noise reduction, or making sure that by design the time constant for this rise time and the fall time for every single clock or every single information that is getting passed within the microcontroller. So that also contributes to reliability. But what I'm trying to say that this is one way to increase reliability. This is not the full way, or this is not the only way. Is that, are you convinced, or still you have questions?
I guess.
Okay, so we can discuss, we can debate on this later on also.
I think yes, more information would be better. So maybe I'll do my homework.
Yes, you. Why don't you study behind in the background, and also we can talk about this later on. Okay, so even after the class today also, that's possible. Okay, now we have to go to this basically the next thing, which is the input configuration. So you have to read always this IO pin. Now the next thing over here is this code that I've written. For ARM, typically we don't write assembly level code in general, unless otherwise there's a very strict time compliance issues comes up. That means if there's a very time critical thing that you have to execute, then only you should write assembly code. But most of the time we write only C code or some sort of high level language coding for microcontrollers like ARM. So it's never done in low level languages, or hardly done in low level languages. Or there are something called inline C with assembly. I will give you an example as we go along. So if you can write a C, you can write always a C program, and for certain time critical portions of your code where you need a very strict time compliance, you can put assembly with certain syntax. So that means C code with some assembly lines punched into it. So that means it's an embedded hybrid mode coding strategy that we'll look at it later on. But that comes later. So let's look at this example. So here the purpose is to configure the microcontroller ports, which may be whichever port that we may consider, and then send some signals, high-low signals, such that it toggles a bunch of LEDs connected to it. This is a very simple kind of code. So first you should keep on initializing all these registers that we discussed, and then we should do that toggling action. Okay, so let's look at the code part over here. So first I have included the header. So this is the header file for a given microcontroller. So and this header file files are available with this integrated development environments, the software where we write this C code, like IAR or Crossworks or Keel. So there are different platforms through which we can write this kind of C codes. And then we just initializing the delay. So for here the delay is again in the C type delay, where we are passing, we are getting some value through passing parameter thing, and then within that there are nested for loops. So there are two for loops. So the first for loop is this one with a fixed coefficient. You can also pass the coefficient of this through the statement on the top. So there's a single for loop, and this for loop is nested within another for loop, where the count value comes from the program which is calling this delay subroutine. Obviously, these values of count and this value for this coefficient I are selected based on certain factors such as the crystal frequency. So here I'm just considering whatever crystal frequency, it must be in some megahertz, and we have to generate some delay in the range of millisecond. Exact delay is not demanded over here. Okay, so exact delay, if it is demanded, you have to do the calculations based on the machine cycle. So I'll talk about that also. Now the main program, so int main brackets, and then we have to do the pin select first, assuming I'm using port 1. Okay, so I'm not using port 0. Here I'm configuring port 1, and I'm using all the pins of port 1, all 16 pins. Okay, so all 16 pins, that means I can write something like this also. Okay, so now the point is it's not necessary to even write all these things. So you can simply write 0, because port 1 is only available for P1.15, P1.16 until P1.31. P1.16 to 31, that means the upper 16-bit lines are available for this port 1. So I think we had seen that in the user manual. And if I write pin select equal to 0, obviously it is influencing the lower 16-bit as well, but lower 16-bit is not connected anywhere, so obviously it doesn't make any difference. If the lower 16-bit would have been connected, then I would have written something like 0x0000, and then whatever other 4 things I should also initialize separately. Okay. So there's this dashes, obviously it will give you syntax error. So I am going to delete it. What I'm trying to say is that for the lower 16-bit, if it would have been present, then you should also write 00 or some value over here. Okay, but if you write simple dashes, it will give you syntax error. So I can simply write 0, which will configure all 32 bits. Now I'm configuring the IO direction. So this is the direction. IO direction equal to 1 means output. So I'm configuring all the pins as output, and it's not necessary that I should also configure the lower things as output. So I can keep it as 0, so that the lower 16 bits, although not present, is configured as input. So the upper 16 bits are output for port 1, because port 1 is connected through pin cell and port 1 direction is stated. So this is the name of the port 1. But this cell 2 represents the pins of port 1, because 2 bits per pin, if you remember. And then while this is 1, that means infinite while loop. You can also use for kind of infinite loops. First, I'm setting IO set, so I can actually keep this 4 as 0000. Okay, and after this statement, so make all the port pins high. So that means if I write, that means P1.16 to P1.31, all are high. Okay, and then I'm calling a simple delay. So and this delay some coefficient. So this coefficient may not be representing 1000 millisecond. So this depends on the clock frequency that you are choosing. And after that, after this particular delay, I'm writing logic 1 to this clear register. So I'll again make it 00 because lower 16 bits are not used. So I'm just writing logic 1 to this upper 16 bits, and then also the delay comes. And after this delay, if the delay is the same, so it will look like a blinking operation with a 50% duty cycle. And this is an infinite for loop within these brackets. So this will keep on repeating indefinitely until you power up the chip. Now you have to ensure before writing this code, the microcontroller is powered up properly, and the microcontroller is connected out of reset. It should also be connected with a proper crystal along with the external capacitors for its proper operation. I think you know the circuit diagram for 8051. It looks exactly the same, or pretty much the same over here for ARM microcontroller as well. Now there are so this is a very simple code where we just doing on-off. Sorry, question. So here we are doing simple blinking of the microcontroller IO ports, and here look at this. I'm blinking all 16 bits at a time. So which looks awkward obviously, but this is just an example. So similarly, you can just put any one bit. Suppose I want to use it for only port 1.31, for example. So what I will do, I will actually configure it instead of this one. So I want to, let's say, only do for 1.31. For this, what shall I write? 0x. I'm making it IO. I have to. This is 8. And so can you understand why this 8? Because 1000. So that is P3.1, and port pin select 2. Which pin from port pin select 2? How can I estimate? I should refer to the manual, and in the manual I have to go to this pin connect block and look at pin cell 2. Should go look at pin cell 2 and port to see pins 1.31 to 16 can be determined via hardware pins prior to deasserting a reset, obviously. Which pin shall I use over here? So that we have to find. For port 31, I think we have to use 31 and 30. So primary function 00, I have to write. This is for 0 and 1. For port pin cell 2, we have to write. Okay, see, one small caveat is over here, or small difference between pin cell 1 and 0 is over here, is the following. So here, since this only these two bits, port 3 and 2, are used for this particular trace or debug purpose, and the other pins are automatically configured as GPIO, so they are actually reserved, so user software should not write once, so it is not required to write one logic 1 to this 0 to this particular bits. So you can write 0 over here, but you cannot write 1 over here, because these are not having any alternate function. Obviously you are choosing the trace or debug. Now trace or debug is a group of pins, it's not a single pin. Okay, so whenever you select any one of the trace or debug, it will automatically recruit the remaining pins from this particular group of debug or trace. So what are those trace debug pins, like JTAG pins, or that scan pins, boundary scan pins actually. But for IO pins, basically you should always write 0 or you don't write anything. Okay, so for this you should consider that in your code, and in my code I should write.
So 0 is only to be written on bit 2 and bit 3, right? You don't need to tamper with 31 to 4.
No, so if you can write a 0 to this pencil 0, but only thing, this is not allowed. 1 is not allowed. So you cannot write 1 anywhere. So let it be 0 itself, because I want all the pins or P0.31 along with all other pins as GPIO. Only thing is that I'll set the direction. So there is the change. So instead of all 4 Fs, I just change it to 8 for that is representing bit 31. Okay, and after this I will write 8,000, and also I'll write 8,000. So this will just ensure that you are only using port 1.31. And on the other hand, you should also write the comment with your C code, as I always prefer to write comment in our codes as low. You should always write detailed comment in your codes. So I'm just writing delay, something like that. Okay, so this is how we should write a simple code with this GPIO port. Now I have many other things on this document, such as switch input, which is again a modified version where the switch means input should be given, and while reading the input I should configure an output, which is an LED. So for that we have to use IO pin register, from where we will get the value. So this is actually another slightly difficult code, but it is actually similar. So for UART, I think it is more important, and UART or SPI or I2C, it is more important. It is slightly difficult than 8051. You have to study a lot more information over here. So let's jump to the manual first, and then we will stop in another 5 minutes. So in GPIO, so for using any of the peripherals, if it is involving any output or input pins, whatever physical pin of the microcontroller, you should always go through pin connect block, and through this pin select thing, you have to again configure your respective pins, whether it is UART or any other pin. You can see in this list UART, PWM, or this is I2C, serial data, or timer match. Or this is SCK is again I2C, analog to digital. Basically, all peripherals must be configured with this some sort of pin cell first. Pin cell 0 or 1 or 2. And then after that, you should go and study this UART thing, or suppose I want to configure UART. So UART is very interesting over here because it offers a lot of interesting added features as compared to the 8051 microcontroller. So first thing is that UART, that means TXT, RXT things will always be there. But in addition, there are some fast in, fast out registers, buffers. So these are FIFO buffers. So FIFO means fast in, fast out. So what is the need of this FIFO buffer? That is very important. You need to understand. Suppose you are sending a string of bytes from one side to another. So TXT of one microcontroller is sending a string of bytes one after another with very little gap. Now the other microcontroller, which is having a separate oscillator, separate frequency, possibly maybe slower or faster than the first processor, so it may lose some information, some of the bytes. So that is a possibility. Again, coming to reliability aspect. So if you want to make sure that none of the bytes are lost, what you should do, the moment it receives, it should be stored in some sort of buffer. It's some sort of bag or storage where you can store more than one byte. So there is a string of bytes coming, but the certain bytes which has not been read is stored in FIFO. In 8051, there is one single buffer, right? SBUF. If you don't read from that SBUF, if this, and by that time the second byte
there is
comes,
one more buffer where you can.
That is, yes, so that is one level buffer.
Yeah.
But see, the point is even more than that. If more bytes are coming, so what will happen? It is going to basically get lost. So obviously in SBUF, and there is one level buffer. Thanks for reminding. So there are only 2 bytes that it can store. So beyond that, what will happen if the microcontroller is responding slowly or due to some other code it is getting stuck? So it will lose the data. So to reduce the chances, it can store up to 16 bytes. So the microcontroller is running at megahertz, whereas this UART runs at kilohertz. So obviously microcontroller can read very fast, and even 16 bytes can be read very quickly. But the point is the attention of the microcontroller should come to these buffers. That is the most important thing. So that's why FIFO registers. That means first in, first out. Whichever data came in first, that should be read out first also by the microcontroller, and so on. So the second data will be read, given to the microcontroller second as a second data. And then there are basically certain industry standards. So basically 550 is a industry standard protocol. So this is again dating back to 1970s, where they were trying to assign some numbers, like IEEE 802.11 is for Wi-Fi, or 11G or N is for Wi-Fi. So this kind of numbering strategy actually was also present with the simple wired communication at that time, and that's what is meant by 550. And more importantly, this 550 was a UART chip. So during early 70s, so UART, which was developed originally by HP, was supported by a separate chip. It was not within the microprocessor chip. So that's why microcontrollers were not there. So the chip, I think 550 or 550 was the number of that chip. You can Google it. So UART interface chip, which is obsolete these days, but it conforms to those basically register set over there. So that chip also had a register basically. So that's how we communicate. So those SBUF kind of registers were present inside that UART chip, and also this was very popular before the microcontrollers came into picture. Now there are separate receive and transmit FIFOs. As you can see, there are 32 registers actually, 16 for transmit, 16 for receive, and then receive FIFO trigger points. So that means you can generate interrupt after 1 byte reception, or after 4 byte reception, or 8 or 14, or even after 16 also. I think after 16, obviously it will generate a flag indication. So it actually indicates the microcontroller through some flag or interrupt that your FIFO is full or empty. And then there are some flow controls. So flow control is not there for both the UART. So there are two UART, UART 0 and 1. One of them is having flow control, like this RTS, CTS, DCV, DTR, RI, ring indicator, data carrier detect. So those pins are called flow control lines, clear to send, receive to send, RTS, CTS. Okay, so now coming to this pins. So in this case, this microcontroller, this ARM microcontroller is supporting RxD, TXD, but it can have the support of both hardware and software flow control, obviously. So software flow control basically through some flags and registers, and hardware basically some pins, physical pins for the flow control thing. And now look at this. So this is one of the 115200 kilohertz, or sorry, 115.2 kilohertz is one of the standard baud rates and this is basically also supported, and I think even higher baud rates are supported. But in such case, there is a chances of error. I can explain to you separately why there is a chances of error beyond certain frequency of operation. Okay, now looking at the register set, you can look at this register set, which is relatively long. We'll have to study this to some extent. This UART 0 register. So the UART 1 will have a separate map of registers. So this is a bunch of registers through which you can configure and exchange data through UART 0. The important ones I have actually listed on my document, and you don't have to look at each and everything. So basically, in general, you can think that there is a receive buffer, there's a transmit buffer. So in case of modern microcontrollers, they have they decouple receive and transmit channels. Even FIFOs are different, even buffers are different. So this is like buffer for transmit, and this is buffer for receive. And apart from this, there are FIFOs, and the FIFO is controlled separately. And then there is a baud rate selection. So I'll just quickly wrap up. There's a baud rate selection register. So this is a divisor latch. That means advanced peripheral bus clock is further divided by another counter, which is whose coefficient of that counter is determined by this DLL and DLM register. So this is this is basically 16-bit register. Look at this. Now we are inside 32-bit microcontroller, but the registers are actually 8-bit over here, because UART typically support 8-bit. So it makes more sense to come to 8 or 16-bit kind of work registers. And then interrupts. So there is a lots of interrupts that we'll study with this UART. It is very important that UART based interrupts are quite popularly used, and then interrupt ID. So again, related to interrupt. Then there are registers related to FIFO control, line control. Line control is basically referring to the handshake signals, as well as line status. If you want to at all check the line, such as if there's an error like parity error or framing error or bit start bit or stop bit missing, those kind of errors are actually given over here. And also there is auto baud control. So this is an interesting feature where you don't need this U0 DLL and DLM. In fact, so auto baud feature is only present in some microcontrollers. You don't find it very commonly in all microcontrollers. So this auto baud feature means it actually does the measurement of time for the input start bit, and then it finds out what is the baud rate, and it tries to set automatically this particular registers internally, and it keeps on receiving or transmitting subsequent data. So this auto baud control is very powerful feature in modern microcontrollers, and typically this ARM microcontroller is supporting that. And fractional divider register. See, the point is this 16-bit divider of the clock signal is not making a very accurate. So there is a offset error, timing offset error. In fact, through diagram I'll tell you next time. There is something called timing offset error in UART, and that actually happens because of the mismatch of the exact divisor clock and its ratio with the baud rate. So I can elaborate on this separately through separate document or writing. But for this, just you have to just reminding you that this fractional divider register increases the chances of, or rather reduces the chances of errors of sampling duration for this UART. Now UART is a digital signal. It also goes through certain sampling. Typically sampling happens at the middle of any bit duration. And that middle of the bit duration, let's say you start for the start bit, if it is at the middle, for the subsequent bit, it will have some offset. Either that offset will shift towards left from the middle, 50% point from the next bit, or it will go towards right, depends on the accuracy. And to increase accuracy, to make it as close as 50% sampling instance, we use this FDR, which is the fractional divider register. It is there in many modern microcontrollers also. And then there is enabling the transmit register. So we'll look at these registers in detail in the next class, and we will see some details about UART and why UART, although very old, which came up in 1960s or early 70s, is still there in almost all modern microcontrollers. along with other protocols. So I'll stop over here. Let me note down the attendance. Okay, let me check whether the attendance has come or not. Just a moment. Okay, I think attendance has come to my computer. I'll just store it. This is for today's 16. Okay, so I've stored the attendance. If you have any question, you can ask me, and or you can leave for today. And just announcement, small announcement. I think you must have received my email about the class test and the assignment for the next one on this ARM topic. So please make sure that you submit on time.
Sir, the recorded lectures are no longer there. So do you have to copy